There comes a moment in life when silence becomes louder than conversations, when being in a room full of people feels lonelier than being alone, and when the same faces that once excited you now bring you nothing, not anger, not joy, not connection, just nothing. And that nothingness is not emptiness. It is not depression. It is not a lack of emotion. It is a sign, a powerful spiritual signal that your energy has shifted, your frequency has risen, and the people around you are no longer aligned with the person you are becoming. This is not a phase. This is not isolation. This is evolution. And the truth is simple. You outgrew them. Today, you will learn the signs, the psychology, the spiritual meaning, and the hidden beauty behind this transformation. So breathe, sit back, and let this message remind you of the person you are stepping into. 1. Your heart is no longer entertained by what drains you. There was a time in your life when you would walk into a room and automatically adjust yourself just to blend in. You would force conversations, even when they felt empty. You pretended to be interested because you didn't want to seem distant. You laughed along just so you wouldn't break the rhythm of the group, even though nothing about those moments actually touched your soul. Back then, the need to fit in felt stronger than the need to protect your own energy. You didn't realize how much effort you were pouring into staying connected to people who were slowly draining you. But now, something inside you has shifted. When you sit with the same people, it's as if the entire atmosphere has changed. Their drama, once entertaining, now feels childish. Their gossip, once a way to pass time, now feels like poison to your mind. Their negativity weighs on you in a way you never noticed before. It feels heavy, suffocating almost, because your inner self has outgrown the emotional chaos they still swim in. You're no longer stimulated by conversations that go nowhere, arguments without purpose, or relationships that only survive on your willingness to shrink yourself. And then comes the moment where you quietly ask yourself, why do I feel nothing around them now? Why does this environment feel empty when it used to feel familiar? That question is not a sign of something being wrong with you. It is actually the clearest sign that something is finally right. The truth is simple. Your heart no longer feeds on low vibrations. As you grow mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, the things that once entertained you begin to feel meaningless. Your spirit becomes allergic to anything that wastes your emotional energy. You no longer feel the urge to respond to chaos because inner peace finally feels more valuable than forced belonging. For the first time, you feel the difference between people who nourish your soul and people who drain it without even realizing it. This silent shift, this emotional disconnect you feel is not a loss. It is a transformation. It is your inner world rising to a level where superficial interactions cannot follow you. It's your intuition protecting you, guiding you away from spaces, habits, and people who no longer match the frequency you are stepping into. And even though it may feel strange or uncomfortable at first, this feeling is the very first sign that you have outgrown the environment you once clung to. It is the universe showing you, gently but firmly, that you are ready for a life that aligns with your highest energy, not your old patterns. 2. You don't belong where your soul is being dimmed. There comes a point in your journey where the places, people, and conversations that once made you feel included now make you feel invisible. You sit among them, but you no longer feel seen. You speak, but your words don't land anywhere meaningful. You share a piece of your heart, but it feels like it falls into an empty space with no echo. And slowly, you begin to realize that it's not because you are failing to connect, it's because your soul no longer recognizes the environment you're in. For years, you may have shaped yourself to fit into circles that were never meant for your long-term growth. You held back your truth to avoid making others uncomfortable. You softened your opinions just to keep the peace. You dimmed your ambition so no one would call you too much. You lowered your energy to match the room because you were afraid that shining too brightly would isolate you. And without even noticing it, you built a smaller version of yourself just to survive in places that could not hold your full potential. But growth has a way of revealing the truth. As you evolve, you begin to see how much of yourself you have been hiding. You start to notice how drained you feel after certain conversations, how heavy your spirit becomes in certain atmospheres, how your mind feels unsupported in the presence of people who cannot grow with you. And that uncomfortable feeling, the sense that you no longer belong, is not rejection. It is guidance. It is your soul warning you that staying in a place where you are forced to dim your light will eventually extinguish your fire completely. You no longer resonate with environments where authenticity is treated as a threat. You no longer feel at home around people who misunderstand your silence, your discipline, your dreams, or your desire for deeper meaning. You no longer crave validation from those who only value a watered-down version of you. And that emotional detachment you're experiencing isn't coldness, it is clarity. It is you finally seeing the difference between belonging and shrinking. The truth is, you don't belong where your soul cannot expand. You don't belong where your ideas are dismissed, where your growth is mocked, where your vision is too big for the minds around you. You don't belong in rooms that require you to hide your intelligence, your heart, your ambition, or your spiritual growth. And the moment your soul realizes this, it begins pushing you out of those spaces, not to isolate you, but to evolve you. Feeling out of place is not a punishment, it is preparation. It means you are ready to step into rooms where your presence is valued, where your ideas are welcomed, where your energy is appreciated instead of feared. You are ready for people who don't just tolerate your light but encourage it, protect it, and match it. You don't belong where your soul is being dimmed because your life is moving toward a version of you that requires your light to be at full brightness. And staying in places that make you small will never allow you to become who you were meant to be. 3. You no longer seek the old version of yourself. There comes a moment when you wake up and realize that you are no longer the same person you were a year ago, 6 months ago, or even a few weeks ago. And it's not because something dramatic happened. It's because slowly, quietly, and almost imperceptibly, you have been shedding layers of yourself, layers of insecurity, fear, guilt, people-pleasing, and self-doubt. You have been outgrowing identities you once clung to for survival, and now, when you try to step back into old environments, nothing feels familiar anymore. You feel disconnected not because the world has changed, but because you have. People around you still speak to the version of you that tolerated everything. They still expect you to show up as the person who apologized too much, accepted too little, loved too deeply without receiving love back, and settled for situations that weren't worthy of your spirit. They talk to the old you, the one who lacked boundaries, who feared being alone, who sacrificed their dreams to keep others comfortable. But that version of you no longer exists, and their inability to recognize your growth creates an emotional gap that you can no longer pretend isn't there. When you evolve internally, the old habits you once justified now feel uncomfortable. The old conversations you once enjoyed now feel shallow. The old distractions you once relied on now feel meaningless. You don't crave the chaos that once kept you busy. You don't miss the comfort zones that once kept you trapped. You don't reach for people who made you question your worth. And the reason is simple. You have outgrown the emotional frequency that sustained your previous identity. You no longer seek validation from your past self because your new self has finally tasted the power of self-awareness. You no longer want to go back to the version of you who accepted less than they deserved because you now understand your value in a way you never did before. You don't want to shrink yourself anymore. You don't want to pretend to be okay with things that don't align with your heart. You don't want to keep repeating cycles you've already healed from. Your soul refuses to return to the cage it broke free from. This is why you feel nothing when you are around people who only knew the old you. They are still interacting with your past identity, an identity you've quietly outgrown. They may call you distant, different, detached, or changed. But what they fail to understand is that evolution often looks like emotional silence. It looks like no longer feeling entertained by things that once drained you. It looks like losing interest in conversations that lack depth. It looks like no longer belonging to a past that kept you small. You're not losing interest, you're gaining clarity. Your heart is no longer seeking the comfort of old patterns because it has finally learned to recognize what real peace feels like. And real peace does not come from returning to who you were. It comes from becoming who you were always meant to be. So if you no longer relate to your past self, understand this. It means you are growing. If old habits feel foreign, it means new habits are forming. If old relationships feel distant, it means new connections will soon align with you. You do not miss your old self because your soul is guiding you toward a future identity that feels more authentic, more powerful, and more aligned with your true purpose. You are not empty. You are evolving. You are not lost. You are transforming. You are not disconnected. You are rising into a version of yourself that your past self only dreamed of becoming. And that alone is proof that you have outgrown who you used to be, and you are not meant to go back. 4. Their energy doesn't match your growth anymore. As you grow, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. You start to feel the difference between people who lift your spirit and people who drain it. This is not something you consciously decide. It is something your inner world begins to recognize before your mind even understands it. You walk into certain spaces and feel lighter, clearer, more present. And then there are places where your energy drops immediately, where your heart feels tense, your thoughts feel crowded, and your intuition quietly whispers, "You don't belong here anymore." That shift isn't random, it's alignment. It's your spirit outgrowing an environment that no longer matches the person you're becoming. Every human being carries a frequency, a vibration shaped by their mindset, habits, beliefs, and level of self-awareness. Someone who lives in fear, jealousy, judgment, gossip, or insecurity vibrates differently from someone who lives in peace, purpose, discipline, clarity, and emotional maturity. And whether you notice it or not, your energy responds to these differences. When your frequency was low, you naturally aligned with people who fed your distractions, your wounds, your comfort zones. You laughed at the same meaningless things. You participated in the same negative cycles. You tolerated what you thought was normal. But as you elevate, you start to see clearly. You begin to sense who truly nourishes your soul and who quietly suffocates it. You start to feel the weight of conversations that go nowhere. You notice how drained you feel after being around certain people. You realize how much of your energy was being poured into maintaining connections that were never meant to grow with you. And when your heart no longer resonates with those old energies, you begin to feel nothing around them. Not love, not anger, not connection, just emotional silence. This silence is not numbness. It is wisdom. It is the awakening that happens when your soul recognizes that forcing alignment with the wrong people will only stunt your growth. You are not meant to lower your vibration just to keep familiar relationships alive. You are not meant to dim your passions to avoid intimidating those who refuse to evolve. You are not meant to absorb the emotional negativity of people who are committed to staying the same. As your energy rises, you become naturally incompatible with environments built on fear, gossip, mediocrity, laziness, or emotional chaos. Your spirit refuses to settle for vibrations that once felt normal. And here is the truth most people never understand. You don't outgrow people because you think you're better than them. You outgrow them because your energy and theirs no longer meet in the same place. Growth changes your internal frequency, and once it rises, anything or anyone that doesn't rise with it will naturally fall away. It's not betrayal, it's not rejection, it's alignment. It's spiritual gravity pulling you toward people and experiences that match your new level of awareness. So if you feel disconnected from people you once cared about, if their presence now feels heavy instead of comforting, if their conversations drain your soul instead of inspiring it, understand that this is not something to fight against. It is a sign you're shifting. It is a sign you're maturing. It is a sign you're aligning with your higher self. And part of that alignment requires releasing anything that tries to anchor you to who you used to be. Your energy is evolving. Your spirit is rising. And not everyone has the capacity or the willingness to rise with you. That's okay. Let the misaligned connections fall away. Let the stagnant energies exit your life. Let the silence speak louder than the history you shared. Because the more you honor your growth, the more you create space for people who match your frequency, who value your peace, and who align with the future you are stepping into. 5. You don't want to fix or change people anymore. There was a time in your life when you carried the weight of everyone's emotions on your shoulders. You felt responsible for their happiness, their comfort, their healing. You tried to explain yourself to those who refused to understand you. You tried to repair relationships that were breaking you. You tried to pour love, guidance, and wisdom into people who had no intention of growing. You believed that if you could just say the right words or show enough loyalty, you could somehow transform them into healthier, kinder, more conscious versions of themselves. You didn't realize it then, but you were draining your own spirit, trying to resuscitate connections that were never meant to last. But as your inner world evolves, something incredibly powerful happens. You stop trying to fix people, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally understand that growth is a personal choice, not a responsibility you can carry for someone else. You begin to see that no matter how deeply you want to help someone, they will only change when they are willing to meet themselves honestly. You can guide someone, but you cannot walk their path for them. You can support their transformation, but you cannot force it. And for the first time, you stop feeling the urge to save people who keep choosing the same cycles. This shift is not coldness, it is awakening. It is the recognition that constantly trying to change others is a subtle form of self-abandonment. You were giving energy to situations that never gave energy back. You were investing your heart into relationships that had no intention of matching your effort. You were sacrificing your peace for people who would never sacrifice their ego. You were lowering your frequency to lift others who didn't even want to rise. And when your spirit finally grows tired of trying to heal others at the cost of your own emotional well-being, you begin to feel a deep, liberating detachment. This emotional detachment is not bitterness, it is clarity. It is you realizing that your heart is no longer willing to engage in draining conversations just to keep a bond alive. It is you understanding that repeating yourself to someone who doesn't listen is a form of self-destruction. It is you recognizing that some people don't actually want help, they want attention, they want excuses, they want someone to blame, they want someone to carry the weight of their unused potential. And suddenly, you no longer feel responsible for them. You don't chase, persuade, or negotiate your worth anymore. You don't explain the same thing again and again, hoping they will finally understand. You don't try to fix their mentality because you finally respect your own peace too much to sacrifice it for people committed to misunderstanding you. You feel nothing, not because your heart is empty, but because your heart is healing. Your intuition begins to guide you with sharper clarity. You start walking away from conversations that drain your spirit. You start stepping back from people who refuse to grow. You start protecting your emotional energy like it's sacred, because it is. You stop forcing connections that require you to abandon your boundaries. You stop putting effort into people who only show up when they need something. You stop holding on to relationships where your presence is taken for granted. The most freeing part of this evolution is that you no longer feel angry or hurt. Instead, you feel peaceful. You accept people as they are, without trying to change them. You understand that everyone grows at their own pace, and not everyone will meet you where you are now. You realize that some people were meant to be lessons, not lifelong companions. You see that your new self cannot survive inside old patterns, and you finally free yourself from the emotional burden of carrying others who refuse to carry themselves. This is the moment when you feel a powerful shift. You don't want to fix or save anyone anymore. You simply want alignment. You want peace. You want reciprocity. You want to give love to people who know how to receive it. You want conversations that expand you, not drain you. You want relationships that pull you forward, not backward. You want connections rooted in mutual growth, not one-sided effort. And the more you let go of the need to fix others, the more you rise into your highest frequency. You begin to attract people who meet you with presence, clarity, and emotional maturity. You begin to experience relationships that actually feel supportive, not draining. You begin to understand that protecting your peace is not selfish, it is essential. So when you no longer feel the urge to fix, explain, or rescue people, understand this. It is not the end of your compassion, it is the beginning of your self-respect. It is your soul saying, I choose peace, I choose growth, I choose myself. You have outgrown the role of emotional caretaker. You have outgrown the need to overgive. You have outgrown the desire to make others see what they refuse to acknowledge. And this, more than anything, is the sign of a heart stepping into true strength. 6. You are becoming comfortable with being alone. One of the clearest and most powerful signs that you've outgrown the people around you is this. You no longer fear your own company. In fact, you begin to crave it. You find yourself choosing quiet evenings over loud gatherings, deep reflection over shallow conversations, solitude over forced social interactions. And for the first time in your life, being alone does not feel like loneliness. It feels like freedom. It feels like coming home to yourself. There was a time when silence made you uncomfortable. You needed noise, distractions, and constant movement to avoid facing your own thoughts. You filled your schedule, just to avoid sitting alone with your emotions. You surrounded yourself with people, even the wrong people, because you believed that being alone meant something was missing from your life. You feared the emptiness. You feared the quiet. You feared the possibility that without others, you might feel lost. But now, something within you has awakened. You no longer run from solitude. You walk toward it. You no longer fear your thoughts. You understand them. You no longer use people as distractions. You use solitude as healing. This shift didn't happen overnight. It began the moment you realized that most of the connections in your life were built on convenience, not depth. You started noticing how drained you felt after spending time with certain people. You realized how much energy it took to maintain relationships that didn't support your growth. You became exhausted from pretending, from engaging in meaningless conversations, from being a version of yourself that no longer existed, and slowly, being alone started to feel easier than explaining why you were changing. You discovered that the quiet moments brought you more clarity than any conversation ever had. Your soul began to understand something profound. Not everyone who stands beside you actually walks with you. Not everyone who calls themselves a friend truly sees you. Not everyone who fills your space deserves access to your energy. And when that realization sinks in, solitude becomes a sanctuary, a space where you can breathe, reset, reconnect, and realign with your higher self. You start to enjoy the simple rituals of being alone, drinking your morning coffee without rushing, taking a long walk without needing company, listening to music that reflects your emotions, sitting with your thoughts without judgment, reflecting on your past without pain, dreaming about your future without limitation. You begin to notice how peaceful life feels when you are not absorbing the emotions of everyone around you. You begin to feel how much lighter your heart becomes when you stop carrying connections that were never meant to stay. Being alone becomes a mirror that shows you who you truly are. It teaches you what you value, what you want, what you deserve, and what you will no longer tolerate. Solitude strengthens your intuition. It sharpens your decision-making. It deepens your emotional intelligence. It helps you understand your patterns, your desires, your wounds, and your growth. The more time you spend alone, the more you meet the version of yourself that you've been suppressing for years. And the most surprising part, you no longer feel the need to fill the silence with people just to avoid being alone. You stop chasing after friendships that feel one-sided. You stop reaching out to people who never meet you halfway. You stop apologizing for choosing yourself. You stop seeking approval from those who never understood your journey. You realize that solitude is not a punishment, it is preparation. It is the universe clearing your path, removing noise, and creating space for something greater. You begin to understand that isolation is often the first step of elevation. Before your life transforms, your circle shrinks. Before breakthroughs happen, distractions disappear. Before you meet your aligned tribe, you must detach from those who no longer resonate with your energy. And in that transition period, solitude becomes your teacher. It becomes the womb of your rebirth, the place where you grow quietly into the person you were destined to become. So if you find peace in your own presence now, if you prefer your own company over forced socializing, if you feel more grounded alone than surrounded by others, understand this. Nothing is wrong with you. You are not antisocial. You are not distant. You are not cold. You are evolving. Your soul is resetting itself. Your heart is healing itself. Your mind is reorganizing itself. You are learning to live without depending on external noise. You are learning to listen to your intuition. You are strengthening your connection with your inner world. You are discovering that the right people, your people, will appear only when you stop settling for the wrong ones. Being comfortable alone is proof that you have outgrown environments that once fed your fears and replaced them with environments that feed your growth. It is one of the highest forms of self-love. It means you are becoming so connected to yourself that you will never again tolerate relationships that make you feel unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. In solitude, you are not losing people, you are finding yourself. And once you find yourself, no one will ever be able to dim your light again. Number 7, your spirit is pushing you toward people who feel like growth. When you start to outgrow the people around you, something profound and almost mystical begins to happen inside you. Your spirit starts searching for a different kind of connection, not louder connections, not newer distractions, not bigger crowds, but deeper souls. You feel a pull toward people who inspire you, who challenge your mind, who speak from the heart, who live with intention, who believe in growth, healing, purpose, and becoming better every day. You feel drawn toward people whose energy feels like oxygen, not weight. And this shift is not accidental. It is one of the strongest signs that your frequency is rising. The relationships you once settled for are no longer enough, not because you suddenly became difficult to please, but because your soul finally understands what it deserves. You have tasted inner peace, self-respect, and clarity, and now anything that lacks depth feels hollow. Anything that lacks emotional maturity feels draining. Anything that lacks honesty feels unsafe. Anything that lacks purpose feels meaningless. You can no longer tolerate shallow conversations or surface-level friendships when your heart is craving authenticity, vulnerability, growth, and truth. As you grow spiritually and emotionally, your intuition becomes sharper. You begin to sense people's intentions before they speak. You begin to feel their energy before they act. You begin to recognize which connections uplift your spirit and which ones silently sabotage your peace. And without forcing anything, your heart starts detaching from the relationships that no longer align with your growth. You stop chasing people who make you feel small. You stop trying to be understood by those who refuse to understand you. You stop investing your time in relationships that do not invest in you. You stop expecting depth from people who live on the surface. Your soul begins redirecting you gently, but firmly toward connections that match your new frequency. These are the people who don't drain you, they expand you. They don't judge your growth, they encourage it. They don't make you feel like you're too much. They see your intensity as strength. They don't fear your honesty, they respect it. They don't compete with you, they grow with you. They don't pull you backward, they walk beside you. And often, this transition begins with a profound emptiness. When the old connections fade and the new ones haven't arrived yet, you stand in a space in between, a season of spiritual loneliness. It's not that you have no one, it's that you no longer resonate with the people you once had. It's the soul's way of cleansing your circle before rebuilding it. It's the universe creating space where better aligned people can enter your life. During this phase, you may question yourself. You may wonder why you suddenly feel detached, why old friendships don't feel the same, why you no longer fit into the environments you used to love. But the truth is that growth always isolates you before it aligns you. Your frequency rises first, and the people who resonate with that new frequency come later. You're not alone, you're upgrading. As you rise into higher versions of yourself, you'll notice that your soul craves different qualities in people: kindness paired with strength, ambition balanced with humility, honesty without cruelty, wisdom without superiority, confidence without arrogance, calmness without indifference, passion without chaos. You start wanting relationships that help you evolve, not regress. You want conversations that ignite your mind, not exhaust it. You want people who see you, not the mask you once wore, not the role you once played, not the version of you they created in their imagination, but the real you, the growing you, the awakening you. And when you finally meet people who match your frequency, you'll feel it instantly. You won't need to pretend. You won't need to shrink. You won't need to translate your soul. You won't need to prove your worth. Their presence will feel natural, calming, supportive, familiar, almost as if your spirit recognizes theirs before your mind does. These are the people you grow with, not apart from. These are the people who match your vibration without draining it. These are the people your soul has been preparing you for. But in order to meet them, you must release the ones who cannot walk with you. Your soul is pushing you toward a new level of life, and not everyone is meant to join you there. This is why you've been feeling disconnected. This is why you've been outgrowing old environments. This is why you've been craving depth, meaning, and authenticity. Your spirit is guiding you forward, even if your mind doesn't fully understand it yet. So trust the pull, trust the shift, trust the silence, trust the emptiness, trust the detachment. These are not signs of losing your way, they are signs of finding your alignment. They are signs that you are being prepared for relationships that nourish your mind, your heart, your purpose, and your evolution. Your spirit is pushing you toward people who feel like growth because you've grown too much to stay where you were. 8. Life removes what no longer matches your destiny. There comes a point in your journey where the things, places, and people that once felt permanent begin to fall away. At first, it feels confusing. You wonder why friendships are fading, why conversations feel distant, why old environments no longer feel like home, why your heart suddenly feels detached from what once mattered so deeply. You question yourself. You blame yourself. You try to hold on to what is slipping away. But life has a way of removing what cannot travel with you into your next chapter, even when you are not ready to let go. What you may not realize is that this separation is not a sign of loss, it is a sign of alignment. Life is not punishing you, it is preparing you. When your frequency rises, anything that vibrates at a lower level begins to break apart naturally. Old energies fall off, old cycles lose their grip, old habits start to feel suffocating, old relationships stop resonating, because your soul is moving toward a future that requires a stronger, clearer, more elevated version of you. And not everyone or everything can survive in the atmosphere of your next level. You might try to resist this change at first. You might try to keep old friendships alive by force, even though the connection feels forced. You might try to reignite feelings for people who no longer align with your heart. You might try to revisit places that once comforted you, only to realize they no longer bring peace. No matter what you do, something feels off, something feels different, something feels like the universe is gently but firmly closing a door you are still trying to peek through. But that discomfort is not random, it is a message. Your soul is telling you, this chapter is complete, stop reading the same page. Life is telling you, you are trying to stay where you no longer belong. Destiny is telling you, it's time to rise. You outgrow people in the same way you outgrow old versions of yourself. Not because you are better than them, but because your spirit evolves faster than your surroundings. When your inner world becomes too big for the environment around you, everything that is misaligned begins to fall apart, not to hurt you, but to free you. Misalignment becomes uncomfortable so that you cannot pretend anymore. The relationships that once felt essential become energetically heavy. The dreams that once felt exciting begin to dissolve. The behaviors that once felt normal begin to feel intolerable. You realize you are moving forward, and they are not. But here is the deeper truth. Life only removes what will hold you back later. Life only closes doors that lead nowhere. Life only exposes relationships that were draining you silently. Life only takes away what you would never let go of on your own. This is why the detachment you feel now is happening with such clarity. You are being prepared for a destiny that requires purity of energy, clarity of mind, and depth of spirit. Your calling is becoming louder, and anything that cannot contribute to it is being removed piece by piece. It may feel like loss today, but soon you will understand it as protection. There will come a moment when you look back at the people who left, the friendships that faded, the environments you walked away from, and you will feel gratitude, not pain, because you will realize that if life had allowed those energies to stay, they would have blocked everything that was meant for you. They would have slowed your growth. They would have dimmed your evolution. They would have distracted you from your purpose. What feels like separation now is actually elevation. What feels like emptiness now is actually clearing. What feels like silence now is actually alignment. And then comes the most beautiful part. Life does not remove without replacing. Life does not empty without refilling. Life does not close without opening something greater. When the wrong people leave, the right ones finally enter. When the old world collapses, the new world begins to form. When you release the weight of misaligned relationships, you rise into the frequency of your true destiny. The detachment you feel is your soul's way of saying, I am not meant to stay here anymore. Life removes what no longer matches your destiny, because your destiny is too important to be contaminated with low energy, small thinking, or stagnant relationships. So trust what is leaving. Trust what feels distant. Trust what no longer resonates. Trust the silence. Trust the emptiness. Trust the shift. Your life is not falling apart. It is falling into place, just not the place you expected. As you move through life, there comes a moment when the silence around you becomes louder than any conversation you've ever had, when the distance between you and others grows without conflict, and when you begin to feel a strange, calm detachment from the world you once clung to. You start wondering why you feel nothing around certain people, why the same environments now feel suffocating, why familiar faces no longer spark connection. But what you must understand is this: nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not disconnected. You are not becoming cold, you are evolving. Every shift you've felt, every detachment you've experienced, every moment of emotional silence has been a sign that your soul is outgrowing the spaces that once held you. Growth does not always come with celebration. Sometimes it comes quietly, through a gradual pull away from the familiar. You stop entertaining what drains you. You stop craving validation from those who never understood you. You stop chasing relationships built on history rather than harmony. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into places that were never meant for your future. And yes, this evolution often feels lonely, but this loneliness is sacred. It is the empty space life creates before something new and aligned enters. It is the clearing before the expansion. It is the spiritual detox your heart goes through before it can rise into a higher frequency. You are shedding old identities, old connections, and old patterns because they cannot exist in the version of life you are stepping into. This is not punishment, this is preparation. Every time you felt disconnected, the universe was realigning you. Every time you felt nothing around certain people, it was your intuition showing you the truth. Every time you felt a shift inside you, it was your soul whispering, you are ready for more. You are not meant to spend your life in circles that make you shrink. You are not meant to stay where your spirit feels small. You are not meant to carry relationships that weigh down your growth. You are meant to expand, to evolve, to rise into your highest self. You outgrew them, not because you wanted to, not because you stopped caring, not because you chose distance, but because your soul refused to stay at a frequency too low for your destiny. The journey ahead will bring people who match your growth, who respect your peace, who speak your heart's language, who walk with you instead of against you. You will find those who feel like home in a way your past never could. You will connect with souls who don't fear your transformation but celebrate it. You will build relationships that align with who you are becoming, not who you used to be. So let go gracefully. Allow the past to fade without fighting it. Trust the silence. Trust the separation. Trust the detachment. Trust the evolution happening inside you. Every exit in your life right now is creating space for a better entrance. Every ending is carving the path for a beginning that is more aligned with your higher self. You are not losing people, you are losing versions of yourself that no longer serve your future. And once you embrace this truth, you will see clearly that the emptiness you feel is not emptiness at all. It is the open space within you where your new life will grow. Your frequency has risen. Your soul has awakened, your destiny is calling, and this time you will walk toward it without shrinking, without apologizing, and without holding on to people your heart has already outgrown.